Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Haunted Gaming. Today's story is a Kirby creepypasta called Kirby's Failure. Now by that title alone, you should get a second set of underwear. Let's start reading.
My first Kirby game, and by that extension the game that made me fall in love with Kirby, was Kirby Superstar Ultra on the Nintendo DS. I had a lot of fun using Kirby's many copy abilities to defeat enemies and bosses alike. I played the game so extensively to the point where I knew every single thing the game had to offer. I had lured myself into thinking that there could be no surprises, but as I would later find out, there can always be surprises. I was browsing on the Kirby subreddit when I found a post titled, "I found a code that unlocks a secret subgame in Kirby Superstar Ultra." Keep in mind that any grammar mistakes you see in the post aren't mine. It read as follows: "I have found a secret that has been hidden in the game for a decade. A subgame that was supposed to be in the game, but was removed at the last second. HAL Laboratory thought they could get rid of it, but it was actually never disabled, and can be unlocked by entering this code at the subgame select screen, and dying in the Nova Starship section before you fight the Galactic Nova Nucleus." In Milky Way Wishes, the post only had 3 points and 4 comments, 3 of which were expressing horror at what they had played, with comments such as, "Do not use this code, it's not what you think it is, what in God's name was that?" And, "What the actual hell was that? Why would Kumazaki allow this to be put in this game?" At this point, I was confused at what they were talking about. I didn't think it would actually be that bad. The last comment was from the OP, who said what the code actually was. I won't say what the code was because I don't want more people playing this subgame. I was rather burned out on the game at the time, so I thought that it was exactly what I needed to freshen up my experience. I booted up the game and witnessed the iconic intro of Kirby flying through Dreamland on his Warp Star. When the title screen appeared, I wasted no time in entering the code. When I entered the final button, I faintly heard the first few notes of Marx's theme play in the background. I thought that was a very unusual jingle for a cheat code validation theme, but I really wanted to see where this goes, so I disregarded it. I went to Milky Way Wishes into the Galactic Nova Starship section and purposefully died in it just like the OP said I should do. The game then froze upon my death and I had to restart my 3DS. When I got back to the intro, my jaw dropped at what I was seeing. The intro was playing, but Kirby wasn't there. Somehow, it continued along like he was there. In the file select screen, there was only one file to choose from. It had 100% marked on it. Without thinking, I selected it, and there was only one subgame available. It was titled Kirby's Failure. The icon for it was a close-up of Marx's face with a red hue over it. The title screen for it was unnerving to say the least. It was a picture of Planet Popstar with Marx looking down upon it with a menacing grin on his face. No music was playing. I started the subgame, but unlike every other subgame, it did not start with a pre-rendered cutscene, and instead jumped straight into gameplay. It started with Kirby lying unconscious on green greens, except green greens was at night and had a withering look to it. Kirby then woke up and I could start playing. Apart from the aesthetic change, it was the exact same green greens from Spring Breeze. But when I got to the mini-boss, who would normally be Poppy Bro Sr., was instead Bandana Waddle Dee. Before I fought him, dialogue appeared much like Revenge of Meta Knight. "Kirby? Is that really you? It can't be. You're dead." "What kind of subgame is this?" I thought to myself. This was nothing like I've ever seen from a Kirby game before, and I do know that Kirby games can be rather dark at times, but nothing to this extent. I'm starting to see why this was never supposed to be in the game. Anyway, the battle was exactly the same as it was in the original game. After that, I continued on with the rest of the level, which was normal until I got to the Wispy Woods boss. Upon reaching Wispy, another dialogue box appeared. "You have a lot of nerve showing your face around here, you pink abomination." Not gonna lie, this line kinda made me chuckle. It was just flat out name calling that triggered the immaturity in me. Regarding Wispy, his fight was exactly the same as it always is. After I kicked Wispy Woods' ass, a pre-rendered cutscene played. It showed Kirby flying on the Warp Star to the Halberd launch station that appears in the Revenge of Meta Knight's intro. Meta Knight was just standing there.
So you survived after all, as I knew you would. However, none of that matters now.
The video then cuts to a flashback.
While you were presumed dead, Marx got the upper hand and used the Galactic Nova to make himself ruler of planet Popstar. Marx then used his powers to annihilate all who oppose him, including King DDD.
I was angered by what I read. King DDD was my favorite Kirby character, and he was just killed like that? I don't care about what Meta Knight had to say. At that point, I made one clear decision. I would play this subgame to its finish.
I had been planning an attack on Marx for a long time, but I needed your help to get rid of the Nova. If we can get rid of the Nova, then we can reverse all of this. I will distract Marx. Don't try to talk me out of it because I have already accepted my fate. Popstar's fate rests within your hands.
After that, I was ejected straight into the Galactic Nova Starship section without any warning. It was exactly the same as normal, of course. After I destroyed the nucleus, it jumped to the battle with Marx, but now without some dialogue.
I knew I should have killed you myself when I had the chance.
Marx then descends onto the screen.
Was that seriously Meta Knight's best plan?
He then vomits out Meta Knight's sword and mask, making clear what his fate was.
Well, I'm glad I get a worthy foe now. Meta Knight barely offered a challenge. One laser was all it took to kill him. I'll gladly make sure you suffer a much more painful death.
After that banter, I went into the battle with Marx. It was of course the exact same as it was in Milky Way Wishes. When the battle was over, Marx let out a deafening scream, similar to Mark's soul. The ending cutscene played. It showed Kirby walking down a road at sunset, a bit similar to the Revenge of Meta Knight's ending. No credits were shown. When it was all over, it went back to the intro with Kirby there this time, and everything was back to normal. There was no sign of Kirby's failure ever being in the game. I don't know if the code can be used more than once, but I don't want to find out. Just goes to show you that you can't trust every random cheat code you find on Reddit.
Okay, so let's start with the one thing that I really liked about this story. There was no blood, there was no dead bodies everywhere, there was no Satan 666. There were absolutely no scary cliches that every single creepypasta actually has. The one problem with that, though, is that it doesn't replace it with anything. There's nothing here that's actually scary. Not a thing. The closest that it has, or the closest this author thinks is scary, is that he said the word died. And then the author goes into a tangent about how this is the scariest Kirby game of all time. Is that it's like the author's mom was looking over him as he was writing this story so he couldn't write anything scary or else he'd get in trouble. It's really weird. You know, every single final boss in these kinds of stories usually dies and then dies in a horrific way and starts spurting blood everywhere. But here he just beats him and then it's over. Just like in the normal game. Nothing here was actually scary. There wasn't a single part that I thought was supposed to be scary. It felt like he kind of just stopped writing. He stopped writing and then just forgot that he was supposed to make a scary story. It's really weird. But overall, in the tier list, this is probably going in C. It's short enough. It's shorter than the other two that are in D, and because of that, it's much more entertaining to read through. There wasn't a point where I wanted this to end because it was so boring, and it's just decent enough. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Oh.